Hey guys, welcome to the show, 888-659-3727. You are listening to and watching The Bald Truth. Great to be here. I think we started on time tonight, actually a minute late, but look, what else is new? If you're new to the broadcast, don't know who I am or why I'm here, I'll tell you why. I'm a consumer advocate for men and women dealing with hair loss. I am the author of The Bald Truth and the Truth About Women's Hair Loss. I also happen to be the founder of the American Hair Loss Association. And what we do on this broadcast each and every week is we provide hair loss sufferers, who just so happen to be the largest demographic of all humankind, a platform to discuss a subject, an issue that sadly society does not allow us to really discuss openly. And of course, that's hair loss. 2/3 of men by the age of 35 will suffer with some degree of hair loss. 40% of hair loss sufferers are women, which I know sounds insane, but that's just, those are the facts. And sadly, even though it's a $3.5 billion a year industry, it's important to know that 99% of all products and services being sold in this industry are completely bogus, will not help you in any way, shape, or form. That's the way that it is. My syndicator, the guys from Queens Network, GFQ, Andrew Zarian, basically told me, I think it was yesterday, he said, you know what's interesting? He goes, you are the only guy in broadcasting who is able to do the exact same show week after week for almost 20 years. And, we laugh about it, but that's the truth. And the reason I'm able to do, well, obviously it's not the exact same show, but the reason I'm able to focus on what conventional broadcasting, what conventional radio would consider a very narrow subject is because it's not narrow at all. This is true broadcasting. I am broadcasting, getting my message out to the largest demographic, like I said, of all humankind. So if you were an advertiser considering advertising anywhere on any radio show or any internet broadcast online, basically you hit your target market by advertising on this program. Now, I'm not saying that we're accepting advertising on the show, at least in the conventional form. But if, whatever's catering to guys, whatever it is, cars, magazines, whatever, electronics, anything that people buy, food, drinks, booze, a vast majority of your customers are balding men and sadly balding women. And that's what makes this show go on. That's why I never run out of things to say, because there's so many of us out there. Now, if you're tuning in for the first time, you've never seen me before, if you're watching the show and you're thinking to yourself, well, this guy seems to have some hair on his head. Well, I'm very honest and open about my situation. I've been balding since the age of 21. I've been lucky enough to stop or really slow down the progression of my hair loss significantly using FDA-approved medication. And I have a quasi-comb over, and I paint the back of my head. And there's a lot of hairspray involved. There are some newcomers to the show that may think, since it's a bald show, I must be wearing a piece, or maybe I've had a hair transplant. I haven't had any work done at this point. Not saying that I won't. I'm a big fan of surgical hair restoration when it's done for the right candidate, by the right team and the right physician. But I have been very fortunate to save enough hair to be able to kind of dummy it up. And that's what I do. This is how I live my life. Not easy for a lot of guys to admit, but this is what I do. So why shouldn't I admit it? I was recently interviewed by an offshoot of PBS. Basically, it's like a PBS online magazine about hair loss in adults. And basically, they were catering to people in midlife, people my age. Now, honestly, if I'm in midlife, if I'm middle-aged, that means I'm going to live to almost 100. So I actually think I'm past middle age. But, the article was okay. I think that the writer really tried to do her best. And this was then syndicated elsewhere, like on other places like the Huffington Post. And it got a lot of traction. I want to make a couple of clarifications about this article. There's no doubt that hair loss affects men and women of all ages. Once you get past the age of puberty or you enter puberty, you are, it can possibly happen to you if you have strong enough genes. And the vast majority of hair loss sufferers who really suffer are those who start the balding process at a young age. But that does not mean that someone who starts at 40 or 50 cannot be as affected as people who start at a younger age. Some of the information that was in this article, unfortunately, was either misquoted or misunderstood. We all know how I personally feel about surgical hair restoration. I think that there are a good percentage of guys who do make good candidates for surgery if they understand the entire scope and possible pitfalls. I would suggest that most guys don't even consider surgery before the age of 30 or 35, but that's not the way it happens. But when it comes to women in hair loss and women in surgical hair restoration, I'm pretty adamant about letting reporters know, letting the media know that only a very small percentage of women really are candidates for surgical hair restoration. And I tried to explain this fact to this reporter, and she got some of it right. But if you did read the article, I just want to make it clear that the reason why most women are not candidates for surgical hair restoration is because, unlike men who have basically DHT-resistant hair in the back and on the sides, which is used for the donor region, most women suffer with what's known as diffuse hair loss. And the reason hair transplantation works is it's based on a theory called donor dominance. And for whatever reason, most guys with male pattern baldness are genetically predisposed to that pattern. And this hair in the back and the sides will usually last most of their lives. And once that's moved, even into areas where DHT-resistant, DHT hair that's not resistant to DHT, miniaturized in the past, this hair that is resistant will grow. For women, not so much. That wasn't well explained. Also, in the article, it states that the American Hair Loss Association does not currently endorse PRP therapy for hair loss. That is not true. We certainly recognize that platelet-rich plasma therapy has its place in hair loss, and there are a few practitioners who seem to be getting really good results. So at this point, we do recommend it. What we haven't recommended yet is low-level light therapy or low-level laser light therapy for hair loss. So they kind of got that wrong. I just wanted to get it out there in case any of you guys or ladies read that article, because it was pretty well read. And I think the point that I'm trying to make is, besides getting the truth out there, is that you cannot trust the media when it comes to your health. This particular reporter, I believed, really tried to do a good job, but she was not able to really truly digest the material. I thought she was recording the interview, but possibly she didn't record it. She was just taking notes or typing. Also during the interview, they interviewed a well-known trichologist. If you know anything about hair loss, if you know anything about what I do, we are not fans of trichologists here at The Bald Truth or through the American Hair Loss Association. Now, trichology has certainly come a long way because of the use of, because now trichologists are able to recommend the use of finasteride and minoxidil products. But a lot of trichology over the years basically have been, and any trichologists out there who want to correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of barbers get into trichology, a lot of non-professionals who want to kind of be professionals get into trichology. In my view, it's been an easy buck over the years. A lot of these trichologists will just take a piece of your hair. They'll kind of like analyze it under microscopes and then, or maybe test it for nutritional deficiencies and put you on some sort of regimen that they make up. And a lot of people spend a lot of money, in my view, wasting their time. And now their precious time, especially since we have real FDA-approved drugs that can help you. They waste their time utilizing these concoctions that a lot of trichologists, at least in the past, have kind of concocted and have sold. So I would be very careful of trichologists. There's probably a couple of really good guys out there that are out there to help you. But for the most part, the entire field has not had a great reputation in hair loss. I'm just, don't shoot the messenger. It's not just, I mean, obviously it's my opinion, but this is also the opinion of most professionals in the field. If you have hair loss, which is a medical condition, see a doctor. Why would you go to a trichologist when you can actually see a physician? Phone number is 888-659-3727. One more thing that I want to touch on is saw an interesting thread on our forum, and also I was emailed something that was very similar to one of the threads that I read. And it's really is about the whole issue of having realistic expectations when you're going in for surgical hair restoration. Well, let me go into the email that I got. This person contacted me, went to a very well-known, very, very well-respected physician, had a hair transplant. I actually saw the images. The person sent me the pictures. This person is very unhappy with the hair transplant, and he based his expectations on a lot of stuff that he saw online. According to the physician actually did provide him with all the information needed for, to kind of get a gauge of what the possible results were going to be. But what a lot of patients seem to do is they look at the best case scenario that's out there online, and they expect that to be them. I took a look at this patient. The patient actually looks pretty good. There is some slight issues with the hairline that can easily be fixed, or it may end up growing out perfectly well. But, I just want anyone who's considering having surgical hair restoration to understand the reality of surgery, to understand the reality of this is cosmetic surgery. And if you're basing your decision to have surgery on images that you see on the internet, in my view, there's something wrong with you. Now, please take that in the spirit that it's meant. This is real surgery. This is not a commodity that you're buying. You're buying something, you're investing in the future of your emotional well-being and how, basically your looks. And why would you take a risk based on information that you just gleaned from a website? Why wouldn't you take the time to meet patients, to have several consultations, to really, see what the average result of someone who has your hair characteristics, your complexion, your facial structure, similar facial structure, or facial shape. If you're basing your decision to have surgery solely on before and after pictures, on any form, including bald truth talk, you are making a mistake. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Spencer, it's Andrew.
Andrew, what's happening, man? Thank you for calling the goddamn show.
Well, I was calling in. I was waiting for you to be done with your opening monologue so I could call in.
Holy Jesus! So I'm looking looking at the chat room, which I try not to pay too much attention to, but I guess people are asking questions in the chat. Now, what I find interesting is why don't these guys who spend time in the chat just pick up the phone?
People don't like talking.
Call
they don't want to call.
What happened? What happened?
It's over. Life has changed. It's 2014.
Everything is texting now. I have people who are tweeting me. I have people who are trying to Skype me.
That's the best. When you're doing a show and Brian Monroe is Skyping away.
Forget about it's not just Brian Monroe. I have all these people some people have found my Skype. I don't know how. A couple of guys that I've accepted inadvertently that are trying to Skype me. Call the goddamn show and I'll answer your questions. So what's happening with you, man?
That's how it is, man. Nothing much. We're redecorating the house. It's like a freaking Turkish bazaar in here.
Well, that's always fun, though.
Oh my God, it's a war zone. I mean, the entire house is a war zone at this point.
Yeah, but you were basically enlisted without you knowing. Like all of a sudden,
I had no idea. I got drafted into this. Yeah, this is like my Vietnam.
Yeah, all of a sudden, you're being asked about crown molding, which ends up being chair molding.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you're forced to paint the entire house.
I'm telling you, whenever I see linens now, I have PTSD. Just curl up in a ball and just start rocking away.
Now, what do you think? And guys, you can call in about your hair loss, but if you don't, I'm just going to talk to Andrew. So, what do you think is happening? Like, why all of a sudden are you having to do all this stuff? Like, what was the catalyst?
Oh, I have no idea. I woke up one day and Jess had already decided that this is what we're doing. I'm like, all right, let's do it.
That's it.
That's it. No questions. It actually looks really good.
So
next time you come here, you're going to see a huge difference.
Well, I actually saw some images which look really good, and you're pretty handy. You're good at what you do.
I am. For a kid from Queens, I guess I am blue collar, so we get a lot of stuff done. I did actually call in to talk about hair loss.
All right. So what's up?
So you said something interesting in the opening segment. You were talking about the article that PBS wrote and Huffington Post republished, and it's amazing how, it's phenomenal that they wrote that article, but there were so many things wrong with it. And it's alarming to see, that information. If I'm a newly discovering person when it comes to hair loss, I'm going to read that. I'm going to be like, oh, this guy that's associated with the American Hair Loss Association doesn't endorse PRP.
Right. And I think that's unfortunate. And listen, I think it's a really important point, and that's why I wanted to bring it up.
And listen, I know you, and we've had this discussion off the air about PRP, and we've spoken about this in detail. I actually read that. I'm like, I was confused. I'm like, I didn't know he didn't endorse it.
I know. Well, the truth is, I told this particular reporter that there are only a handful of guys in the entire country who are doing PRP correctly, that all PRP is not created equal, and there's a lot of factors involved. And I told her about the guys who I felt who I know seem to be getting really good results. And for the most part, a lot of guys who are offering crap, in my view. But she chose to kind of lump it into one thing, saying that we just don't endorse PRP, which is not the truth.
The other thing that's bizarre is, why are they interviewing a glorified barber?
That was my water, dude. Listen, this guy.
How is that?
This guy
There's so many doctors out there, like legitimate doctors.
Look, this guy comes from a long line of trichologists. His dad was a very famous trichologist. He treated Mick Jagger and all these celebrities. And this guy is now he has a big facility in New York. And that's a really good question, and that really just goes to show you how completely lost and unregulated this hair loss industry is, and the fact that
in 2014, do we need? Do people actually go to trichologists when they're suffering hair loss?
They do. They actually do, and people actually believe that since these people are experts, quote unquote, since they studied the treatment and the prevention of hair loss, that these are the guys to go to, and I would say that there are probably a handful of trichologists who might work, in tandem with physicians, who might be able to give people good advice, who are honest, who are able to kind of guide people and hold their hand. But the truth of the matter is, I don't even understand the entire discipline. To me, it just seems like such a waste. And, it was really based on almost like homeopathic medicine to some degree. And a lot of nutritional issues and, there's a lot of stuff that, for the most part, I have never known of anyone who had success with their hair loss by going to a trichologist.
I mean, like I know. I mean, obviously we all know, but I know a lot of people suffering from hair loss, and the first thing they do is they go to a dermatologist, and the dermatologist looks at their hair, and they give them Propecia, or they tell them, go get Rogaine, and that's it, and that's as far as they go.
Well,
I guess this is the next step, beyond that. If you're a dermatologist and you really don't understand hair loss, who are you going to recommend someone?
Well, look, here's the thing. The thing about trichologists, you go into, some of these guys have really decent, nice looking facilities. They have, they put on this lab coat. Now trichologists do offer low level laser light therapy. They may offer to sell you a laser comb, other, in my view, questionable devices. Not saying that the laser comb is questionable, but they may be selling other questionable devices, and I have to say we're vulnerable as hair loss sufferers, and these guys are really easy pickings. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this guy Kingsley. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this guy. I think that he wrote one of his book, or the book that he did write was it was okay, and I think that he
for hair loss.
He has provided people with some good insight and some good information. But I also believe, in my view, and I could be wrong, that there's a lot of hocus pocus involved. And I think that, guys like him really believe in this stuff where it doesn't seem to mesh with science. So again, the fact that the mainstream media would interview a trichologist it just speaks volumes of how society just doesn't really take hair loss seriously.
I mean, I just Google searched cure for hair loss now. And there's an article that was just posted by CBS 8. I don't know where this is located.
Yeah.
And they go on to this entire cure for hair loss, Provilis.
Provilis. Oh, my God.
Yeah. They're talking about Provilis hair treatment for men and Provilis for women.
Yeah.
And the entire thing, it's a press release. That's all it is.
Well, yeah. Well, there's a lot of.
I'm some schmuck that goes online. I'm going to look at this. If I just Google cure for hair loss, I'm going to say, "Oh wow, CBS 8 is posting this. I'm going to go buy this thing."
Yeah, I know. It's the way that it is, and I guess that's why we're still needed. That's why I still can do what I do, because there's just so much misinformation out there, and the mainstream media perpetuates this misinformation. So it really makes this a very confusing place for people. And sometimes I think people look at me and they're like, wait a second, they go to the American Hair Loss Association and they only see like 2 or 3 things that work. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of possible treatments that are being promoted online.
People don't want to hear that.
People don't want to hear that this is all you got. They want to buy the guy's ebook who cured hair loss in his basement. That's what they want.
Called me. For people who don't know who Coco co-hosts the Friday Night Free For All with us, and he called me. Actually, he sent me a Facebook message. So I'm going to read you this entire message.
All right.
And this is a guy that listens to your show every week. This is a guy that knows you intimately. You guys have gotten together. We've all gotten together. We talk about hair loss all the time.
He doesn't know me intimately, but he knows me well.
Very intimately. He knows you very intimately.
Right.
So he wrote this entire thing to me, and he's asking me about the laser comb. And he's like, hey, my brother-in-law has a hair loss question, if you don't mind. And I go, sure, go ahead. He goes, he wants to know if he should buy the laser comb. And I said, no.
Right.
You should not buy the laser comb. He goes, why? I go, because it doesn't really work.
Now, why would he, A, write you about it when he can text me anytime?
I have no idea.
Unbelievable.
I go, where did he hear about this? He goes, he saw it on TV. Oh, the laser cap. Oh, no, he's buying a laser cap.
A laser helmet, probably, or a laser cap.
Yeah. He saw it on TV. I go, how far along is he? He goes, he's horseshoe. I go, so he's like a Norwood 6.
Yeah.
He goes, dude, there's no hair.
Well, look, I will tell you this. I don't mean to cut you off. There are some doctors out there who I have a great deal of respect for. One is Dr. Alan J. Bauman, who is a real believer in low-level laser light therapy for hair loss, and he believes in the laser cap and and all this.
Yeah, I mean,
all these
I
products.
met up with Dr. Bauman. We had a whole discussion about this, and you know what? Theoretically, it should work,
dude. If you put Dr. Bauman, you gave him a polygraph, he would pass. He believes in this stuff wholeheartedly.
Absolutely.
He has said it. He has seen it in his practice. Now, I will say that I have kind of gotten a little bit more open-minded about it because I have gotten reports from patients, from people who have contacted us through the program or through the IHRS who do believe they've seen results. I have seen some marginal results on some patients. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen anything stellar. So at this point, I'm like, well, you know what? If you're buying the right device with the right amount of diodes, it's possible there could be some benefit, but it would certainly not be my first line of attack. So I can't give it the full thumbs up, and we're not going to do it through, give it the full thumbs up through the American Hair Loss Association at this point. But I have seen some guys and a couple of women who really believe they've benefited from it, and guys like Dr. Bauman and other doctors they're big proponents of it. But until I really see the data, I can't recommend it. I can't say this is your first line of attack. I could be selling laser caps and combs and hoods and all. I could sell it on this program. Companies come to me and they want me to consult for their businesses. They want me to be a part of what they do. They want to advertise. They want to be a consultant. I have turned down all of their money over the years.
I don't think the laser cap is silly. I do think it works for some people, but you also have to be realistic about what you're expecting for the results to be. If you're a Norwood 2 or a Norwood 1.5 and you start using a laser comb, a laser cap, you may see far more improvement over somebody that's, a Norwood 6. And his expectation is to have,
well, let me tell you something. Honestly, if you're Norwood 6 or Norwood 5, don't even bother getting a laser cap. Okay, if you're a woman with diffuse hair loss, if you're at the beginning of the process, if you're afraid to take medication and you're willing to spend the couple of $1,000 for the cap or the $800 or $900 for the laser helmet, then go for it. That's your choice. But once you get past a certain point, there's no way at Buyview that these caps or helmets or combs are going to help you in any way, shape, or form. So you definitely helped them out.
But here's the thing. I was telling Coco about this. I'm like, no, don't get it. And his brother-in-law is insisting. He's like, well, I spoke to somebody, and he wouldn't tell me where he saw it. He saw it on TV.
Yeah.
Well, and he's like, well, I spoke to them, and they said it works, and there's a money-back guarantee. The sucker ended up paying $900.
Oh, yeah. You know what you're getting with the money-back guarantee? I'm not saying with this particular product, but a lot of times when you get a money-back guarantee in anything in the hair loss world, you're basically purchasing a guaranteed piece of crap. That's it. You got to look at it that way. And then when you try to return it, whatever it is, I'm not saying that this is a piece of crap, but whatever the product may be, the salesperson tries to talk you into trying one more month or two more months, and then all of a sudden, lo and behold, the money-back guarantee expires. Happens all the time.
But it's funny because I asked him, I'm like, is he on Propecia? Is he on Finasteride? He's like, no, he doesn't want to go on medication.
Yeah, of course not.
But he wants to put a cat toy on his head and let it sit there for hours.
Yeah, that's what makes the world go round, and that's why the industry is so huge. Andrew, listen, I'm going to...
Actually.
I appreciate the story. I'm going to let you go. I know you got a lot of stuff to do in the house. You probably have some more painting to do, right?
I just put my Persian rug down, Spence.
I want to see it. Put it on Facebook.
Oh, God. It's amazing.
I'm sure it's beautiful. Say hi to everybody. Thanks for the call, dude.
All
right, take it easy.
No problem. Bye.
888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you are on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Happy Thanksgiving, Spencer. Happy Thanksgiving, hair loss sufferers. And please tell your previous caller not to quit his day job because he is totally ignorant.
Which caller? Andrew Zarian?
Previous caller. I don't know what his name was. I just tuned in now. I'm on the bus coming from the Wounded Warriors Parade. Want to do my opening? I want to get to that first.
Well, that is actually very fascinating. Yes, I want to do your opening.
Thank you.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
My name is, excuse me. My name is,
Would you like to may reiterate it?
my name is,
Have you heard it? Excuse me.
my name is,
Joe from Staten Island.
Joe, I'm really proud of you that you went to the Wounded Warrior Parade. I am a big supporter of the organization. And actually, when my father died, today is actually my father's birthday, and obviously it's Veterans Day. It's the first birthday in my life that my father has not been on this earth. And of course, he was.
Man, I'm sorry.
Well, thank you. He's a decorated World War II veteran with a Bronze Star and 2 Purple Hearts. And at his funeral, we obviously don't want any flowers. As Jews, you don't want flowers, but we basically asked attendees to donate to the Wounded Warriors Project because I think it's an incredible organization. And there are other organizations that are similar to it that are doing similar things, really helping these wounded veterans and their families. And I think it's something that's really overlooked.
Well, I have some major news. Can I just get to the Wounded Warriors first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was in full garb today. I wore a black turban, to match my black hat and a black Wounded Warriors shirt.
Oh, good for you.
Well, the reason I joined was, of course, the commercial with James Gandolfini, who was a sufferer who passed away last year, as you know, really got to me.
Yes.
And I sent a $228 donation for 1 year.
Very nice.
The person I live with, who calls herself my wife, or when we get to that, castigated me for it.
Now, why would you do that?
Well, we won't get to that now. This is another video. We'll talk that private conversation. I have a lot of news tonight. I marched the Warriors, and I realized one thing, Spencer.
Yes.
I was surrounded by sufferers who were in wheelchairs, had no arms and no legs, and I finally came to the realization, man, people a lot worse off than me, and you sufferers out there.
You know what? I'm glad it only took you 55 years to figure that out, Joe.
56.
56 years.
Well,
that's what I try to tell. That's what I try to tell people all the time, especially these young cats out there who are spending their entire lives on the message forum, really suffering and not living their lives. And listen, it stinks.
They're not suffering, man. No, they're not.
Look, no, there's no doubt it stinks. They are not going to get the chicks that they want to get. They're going to be less confident, unless they figure out a way to become more comfortable in their own skin. Even if they do figure it out, they will be marginalized to some degree by some people. However, there are ways to combat it. And there are ways to, if you don't want to deal with being a bald guy, hair transplants, medication, hair pieces, things that you can do to get yourself through the day. But a lot of these guys, it's all or nothing. And you were one of those guys, Joe, for a very long time.
Well, I saw Noah at 7 today with no arms and no legs, 23 years of age. What is that? I come to the tragic realization with no donor area. And no arms and no legs. And he was smiling. You think he has time for the message for him? I don't think so.
Yeah, that's pretty heavy stuff.
Well, I was very moved that I brought you tears today. Now I have some major news. I know you have a million other calls on the line. There's major news for the audience.
Yeah, go ahead. I do. Go ahead.
Well, I'm guaranteeing you cats, next Christmas, you'll be opening up your Christmas stocking, you'll be using a new topical by Monopros by Allergen. Allergen that's completed the Phase 2B studies of Monopros, clinical trials. Results will be announced at January conference call. What I'm hearing, it's not a cure, but a super effective treatment which will draw minoxidil and propecia laughing. The stock has gone through the roof.
Yeah, and I'm hearing the same thing, Joe, and it is exciting. I think that it's great that we're going to have another tool in our arsenal that may be significantly more effective than minoxidil, which is incredible, and especially for the younger guys who are starting early. This is going to be something that I think could be really great.
Well, Monopros is a PGP2 inhibitor.
Right.
It's another avenue of growing hair. It's a totally new avenue. And allergen is violently being tried to take over by major corporations. As you know, Johnson & Johnson, Valiant, I try to take the company over. Coincidence? I don't think so. Please comment, sir.
Joe, first of all, I want to say how lucid you are tonight. And
I appreciate that. I'm very lucid.
You seem a little hopped up. So I don't know if are you drinking coffee or are you on like some sort of energy drink?
No, I'm drinking Diet Coke. I'm on the bus actually.
Okay. Now, so you're on the bus. What about the people around you? What are they doing right now when you're on the bus, basically reading the news to me?
They're actually involved in their own world. They're not even listening to me.
They don't even care.
No, I'm surrounded by noise, and I'm not paying attention. Now, part 2 of my news is Cosmo Pharmaceuticals has completed Phase 2 of Cosmo 301. I have so much news, I can't digest it all.
Go ahead, spit it out. Go ahead, give it a shot.
They completed phase 2, going on phase 3, the topical male pattern baldness treatment, and also Zarian Corporation owns Kobren Pharmaceuticals. There's so much news, I'm exhausted, Spencer. You got to give me a break, man. I can't. I'm exhausted.
All right, so you want to stay on hold? You want to call back? What do you want to do?
I want to talk about it. We'll talk a little bit more. Give you another 5 minutes?
Yeah, go ahead. I want to take some calls, but go ahead.
I'm actually excited the first time in my life. I'm announcing I'm taking my reputation. We'll have effective treatment for hair loss. And we emphasize treatment, not cure. Let me emphasize that. Next year, this time. Now, I'd like to get to the laser comb, if you don't mind. I want to castigate your previous call on and see your comments about that.
All right.
I'll be contacting Alan Batman through you. I'll be purchasing his laser diodes, hat, and I'll be experimenting with that.
Well, good for you.
That's a fact. What?
Good for you. I honestly think that you may not get the result that you're looking for. I think that you've been significantly bald for a long time, even though, according to the doctors,
you never see my hair.
according to the doctors who have seen you, what I was about to say, you don't seem to be as bad off as you have been portraying your hair loss to be overall. All these years.
I realized what's his name? Alan Feldman realized he diagnosed me as having body dysmorphic disorder. He said he was combing my hair. I was imagining baldness.
Right. Well, that would be pretty interesting, and maybe we should speak to Dr. Bauman and work something out for you.
But I refuse to have my head photographed. You know that. I wouldn't. Gary Hitziger, I would not give him wouldn't photograph my head.
All he would need is, I'm sure all he would ask is for a verbal testimony and your verbal account, and I think that would probably be fine.
And I want the real thing, and I'll pay the money. I want I'm very wealthy. I want the real thing.
Well, then he's not going to give you the fake thing.
Pardon me?
He's not going to give you a fake one.
I know that. That's why I want to get it via through you, if you don't mind.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that. Anything else before I take another call?
No, one more thing. Now, Korea, they're working on DK11201. That's a phase 2 clinical trials. These things I never heard about are coming to fruition. I never heard about these treatments. Refacel, Histogen. I'm bothered by the news. I can't digest it all. Maybe you can comment to help me out with this. I can't do it all, Spencer.
Well, you can do it all. And what do you want me to comment on? What exactly do you want to know?
I mean, there's so much news coming out. These guys are on the message sites. I'll be attacked tomorrow. I know for this comment. Tonight, we'll both be attacked.
Look, what
do these guys want?
Here's the news. This is the news. You basically gave the important stuff, and we know what's coming to fruition. I think bimatoprost is I've been talking about it. We've been talking about it for a long time. You've been excited about it. It's funny. I was looking at some old listening to some archives and listening to you talk about this stuff since 2008, 2009.
I bought the stock. I made a fortune. Off the record.
All right. Well, you know what? I don't want to know about that. All right, Joe. Listen. We're
I'll let you know, but I'm on a bus. I might get cut off, so I won't be rude.
Okay. Well, you can call back when you get off the bus. All right.
Yes, plus I'm going to be cut off any time now. God bless you. I want to say for your father, God bless him. I know he's in heaven now, and God bless his soul. I know he's having a great time with his military veterans of World War II. Wonderful father. Okay, Spencer?
All right, man. Thank you for that. Take care, Joe. Thanks for the call.
God bless you, man.
All right, you too.
Suffers out there, please support the Wounded Warriors Foundation.
That's awesome. Wounded Warriors Project. But thanks. Take it easy, dude.
You, man.
Okay, bye-bye.
I can just listen to this until I get cut off if you don't mind.
All right. Let's see. What line are you on?
Sir. God bless you, man.
God bless you, Joe. Hold on. Jesus. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Ben from Washington, D.C.
Hey, Ben from Washington. What can I do for you?
So I am 31 years old. I've been dealing with hair loss for about 30 years right now. My situation is a little. Wait a
second. You said you're 31. You've been dealing with it for 30 years or 3 years?
Three.
Okay.
3.
I'm getting old.
My situation is a little bit different than what I've read about in forums or what I've heard about. So I did, as far as all the advice that I hear, I did everything right. I went on brand name Propecia pretty much as soon as I noticed any amount of hair loss. Like before anyone noticed anything, I went to my doctor and he said, maybe you have some, and he gave me a script for Propecia, and I went on it and I've been taking it every day for 3 years, and
okay.
I've never had any side effects at all.
Well, that's good.
So my question is this: it seems like I'm continuing to lose hair, particularly in the front.
Okay.
My hairline is receded maybe an inch in the last 3 years, and the front is thinned out a little bit.
Now, what about the rest of your hair, the crown and the sides? Does that seem to be pretty stable?
Yeah, that seems stable.
Okay, well that's the good news, for sure.
So I went to an ISHRS doctor,
Right,
and to consult with him, see what I can do. And I saw him twice in over a period of a year.
all right.
And the second time, he said, "Yeah, it does look like I lost some hair in the last year since you last saw me." So I asked him if I can get a script for Dutasteride, which he gave me, the script. He seemed a little bit hesitant. He said he has only one other patient that's on it.
Right.
He said he was pretty clear that he was giving me the script, but it was kind of caveat emptor, buyer beware.
Right. Well, listen, he's got to, even though, listen, legally he's allowed to prescribe it off label, but he has to give you full disclosure, and you have to understand that you are taking any of these drugs at your own risk. And these guys are just trying to save their ass, because there are guys who do have severe adverse side effects, even with just, 1 milligram of finasteride. So, once these guys kind of go into uncharted territory, they get a little nervous. Are you there?
So,
yeah.
Yes, I am, yeah. So I got this medication. I haven't taken it yet. And I guess I just wanted your opinion. What do you know about it? Is it safe? I know it's not approved for hair loss, but
I'll give you my opinion is this. Most doctors will say that finasteride is not dose dependent. They'll say that, according to clinical trials, all you need is 1 milligram daily to stop the progression of your hair loss and to regrow hair. But what I have seen anecdotally throughout the 17 years that I've been in this field is that for some guys, raising their dosage of finasteride to 2 milligrams a day or 3 milligrams a day, or in some cases 5 milligrams a day, have really improved their results. Now, I've been on 5 milligrams. I started off on 5 milligrams a day many, many years ago. Now I take 1 5 milligram tablet just about once a week. And luckily, I've been able to maintain a lot. So for me, I don't know if the 5 milligram dosage kind of jump-started my results and kind of got me to where I needed to go, and then I was able to maintain my DHT levels even when I lowered the dosage. But for guys like you who are willing to jump on Dutasteride, my thing is always, why don't you ask your doctor first about increasing your dosage of finasteride? You already have experience with the drug. You're not currently dealing with any adverse side effects. The drug has a much shorter half-life, meaning that it stays in your body, in your system for a very relatively short period of time. And compared to Dutasteride has a very long half-life. If you do suffer from adverse side effects, it's going to take a lot longer to recover from the side effects, as opposed to if you suffer from adverse side effects. And again, I'm not a physician. From raising your finasteride dosage, you can probably go back down to your original dose and kind of recover from whatever side effects you have almost immediately. So my advice is this: talk to your doctor about possibly upping your dosage. And I mean, if you're willing to give it some time. You're always going to have the big guns. They're going to be there. Dutasteride is there for you. In my opinion, it seems like you've done okay in the last 3 years. Even though you've lost some ground, maybe just doubling your dosage will help you. Maybe taking a half of a Proscar, every day. That might get you to where you want to be. And again, I'm prefacing this by saying that I'm not a physician. I'm not giving you medical advice. Talk to your doctor about this, but at least anecdotally, I have spoken to people who have upped their dosage and have had better results.
Did you notice any difference yourself when you switched from 1 milligram to 5 milligrams?
I didn't switch from 1 to 5. I actually went the opposite. I started off at 5 milligrams, and then, I kind of use intermittent therapy. Once your DHT levels at a certain point, once you kind of load your body up with the drug, your DHT levels basically stay put for about 2 weeks. So as long as you introduce the drug into your body at least once a week, theoretically, your DHT levels should stay at that point. So I chose to kind of go that route after I was on the drug for a few years. And it's been working well for me. So for the last 10 years, I've probably taken no more than 10 milligrams a week at the most. I'm averaging about 5 milligrams a week. So for me, I did the opposite. I started high and then I cut my dosage. But in your case, I would certainly talk to your doctor about that possibility. And he may say, look, in our practice, we haven't seen that. But if he's willing to prescribe you dutasteride, to me, there's no reason why he wouldn't prescribe you finasteride or a 5 milligram dose of Proscar and have you cut that up and try that first.
Mm-hmm. So in your experience, is this a common occurrence? Do most men on finasteride, are they able to maintain their hair indefinitely as long as they're on it, or is it common that you lose some ground over a number of years?
It's very common that people lose ground over a number of years. At least clinically, about 86% of the guys in the trials were able to maintain their hair for a long period of time, I think up to 5 years. And then initially it was up to 2 years, and then they did a 5-year trial. But it does start to decline from the baseline, after you kind of reach your peak on the drug. Mm-hmm. However, there's also about 14% of guys that it doesn't work for at all. You seem to be somewhere in the middle. So that's why I say you might want to consider upping your dosage and talking to your doctor about upping your dosage to see how you do. It seems like you've maintained your mid-anterior scalp, your crown, and your sides, and you're only having a little bit of recession in your hairline after being on the drug for 3 years. Maybe upping your dosage will kind of keep you where you are for another 10 years. Mm-hmm. If you were able to maintain what you have right now, would you be happy?
That's the best that I can do for right now, yeah.
Yeah, listen, I'm not saying that I don't take dutasteride. There's plenty of guys who are on dutasteride, and they're doing quite well. And some guys, they take that drug, and they have significantly better results. But to me, at least at this point, that's the big guns. And it's a dual 5-alpha reductase inhibitor. There's a greater chance of adverse side effects. Doesn't mean you can have them, but you've already been on Propecia for 3 years. To me, it just makes sense to kind of possibly try to up your dose or talk to your doctor about upping your dose and give that 6 months and see what happens. But in the end, it's up to you. If you really think that you're losing ground quickly, you have this script, your doctor prescribed it, it's up to you if you want to take it.
Mm-hmm. My concern with the dutasteride, and this is something that my doctor brought up, which was an interesting point. He said that there are no human analogs for people who are missing both of these alpha reductase inhibitors. So for the finasteride, there is a group of people who are naturally missing this enzyme, and they seem to live relatively normally, but there's no analog for people who are missing both, so we don't really know what the long-term effects.
Right. There's no group of human beings that, occurring in nature that have a 5-alpha reductase type 1 deficiency. So yes, he's absolutely right. And
I suggested to him, I said, this drug has been on the market for over 10 years now. So there are some people that have been on it for many years, and he pointed out that it's because of the way the drug is marketed for BPH. They're generally older men,
right?
And they probably wouldn't notice symptoms like the type of symptoms that might occur.
Well, and that's actually a good point. A lot of the symptoms that may occur, a lot of these guys, especially if they started at an older age, if they're in their 60s or 70s now, they're probably relating these symptoms, these possible side effects, to old age or other issues that could occur, whether it's loss of memory or lowered libido or different issues that could occur on this drug. So yeah, you're 30 years old. There are plenty of guys who are your age who have been on this drug for a long period of time that do not seem to have adverse side effects, but you never know. So to me, You know, I'm a fan of the less is more approach. If you can possibly get a good result just by upping your finasteride dosage, then I would probably give that a shot first, if it were me. So I would talk to your doctor. You're always going to have that script to do dutasteride. You can get another one, I'm sure. But, you know, unless you are 100% convinced for some reason that this isn't going to help, it's not going to help you to up your dosage, then, you know, you do what you got to do. But if it were me, I would start by upping my dosage, talking to my doctor about it, and seeing if he'd be willing to give me a higher dosage of finasteride.
Like splitting a Prospar, for instance?
Yeah, maybe going up to 2.5 milligrams, just splitting a 5 milligram and taking that every day and see what happens. And again, I'm not giving you medical advice, but that's what I would do.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the advice. And this is something that I haven't heard before. Certainly something that hasn't come up on the message boards.
Yeah.
So this is new information for me.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. And there's a lot of stuff that's not on the message boards. A lot of stuff that's on the message boards, sadly, is nonsense. So you really got to read the message boards, even our message boards. You know, glean what you can, but take what you're reading from anonymous users with a grain of salt. All right?
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, take it easy.
Bye-bye.
888-659-3727. I don't know if I was able to convince that guy, but, you know, we'll see. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
This is me. I'm still listening to the show.
Oh, my God. Yeah, what do you want?
Could I give you one more minute? That's something I forgot to tell you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I have a startling announcement to make to you and your millions of listeners.
What do you got?
My hair is actually starting to grow on the top. Can I tell you why? I figured it out.
Why?
I'm not kidding either. Would I lie to you? You know I don't lie.
No.
I've been taking massive doses of vitamin D due to my shoulder injury 7 months ago. You recall that?
Yeah.
And I've been taking vitamin D3. And as you know, that's a PGD2 inhibitor.
That's actually very interesting that you say that. You know, I mean, vitamin D...
Not massive regrowth, but some regrowth.
Vitamin D deficiency it's a huge issue in this country. And, you know, I actually blame the dermatological community for a lot of the vitamin D deficiency, because now everyone is just so scared to go into sun. And, you know, we're told to walk out in daylight with, you know, basically either covered or wearing sunscreen. So there's really no natural vitamin D conversion. And most people aren't taking the correct dosage of vitamin D or D3 to adequately supplement their vitamin D. And even with the supplementation, it's not quite as good as the sun for conversion. So, yeah, that could definitely play a role. There's no doubt. I think that's interesting that he brought that up.
My son told me, Dad, your hair on top is getting longer. You better get it cut. Now,
Wow.
for kids to say that, you know what's on my mind. I wouldn't make it if that wasn't true. You know that.
I believe you, Joe. Well, that's good. That's good news. Hold on, man.
It's
all right.
not massive, but it's...
Well, for someone who's been dealing with hair loss, you know, all these years, to see some regrowth just by adding, upping your dosage of vitamin D.
The hairs are getting longer for the first time in my life.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Well, that's interesting.
I'm not kidding either.
All right, we'll put you on hold. Hold on.
Thank you, man.
I just hung up on him. Jesus. Sorry, Joe. Hey, who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, hello?
Yeah, hi.
Hey, this is Kenny from New York.
Hey, Kenny from New York. How are you?
Good. How's everything? I've called the show a few other times before.
Well, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. I actually had a few questions. I don't know if you remember me calling a while ago, but I guess I'm dealing with like some slight hair loss, but I'm also dealing with, I don't know if you're familiar with this. I mean, you probably are, but I have something that I went to the dermatologist because I've had like these really pesky flakes in my head.
Right.
And like in my hair. And he told me I have seborrheic dermatitis.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, it came to the point where I shaved my head this week just so that I could scrub and like try and get rid of it.
Okay.
And
well, what did he give you? It's actually, and it's seborrheic dermatitis. And
okay.
And what was the suggestion? I mean, obviously, one of the first lines of attack is that they're going to give you a shampoo.
Right.
And they
Go ahead. he prescribed me triamcinolone acetonide. I can't even pronounce it.
Okay. And what else?
But the thing he prescribed me is just to get rid of the redness.
Right.
But a big thing was like I kind of had like a lot of scales like on my scalp of just like dead, oily skin.
Right.
And this is like the first time I've ever shaved my head. I mean, this is the shortest my hair has ever been, ever. Like, so it was kind of like a big thing for me.
That's huge, actually. I mean, listen, one reason, and I don't know if you were diagnosed with male pattern baldness as well, but when you do have seborrheic dermatitis, you can definitely get these plaques, kind of like psoriasis, and these scales that could actually cause temporary hair loss during the time you have these, especially if the plaques get very thick.
Right. And, it's funny that you mentioned that because I noticed when I first noticed like my hair loss, it was probably around like 2 years ago.
Right.
And it was around the time when this started. Like I got like very slight dandruff, but I just thought it was dandruff. And so this has gone like untreated for like 2
seborrheic dermatitis is also called dandruff. A slight form of of seborrheic dermatitis is what causes dandruff. But as it progresses, in some cases, it could become plaquey and get a lot worse, and it becomes a lot more advanced than dandruff.
Right, exactly. And in the beginning, I kind of had it like I had like some redness on like my right temple, which is where I first started to notice like a very slight recession like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been lucky enough, knock on wood, that, my hair hasn't really changed in the past like 2 years. But, it drove me crazy, this, the dandruff, just because I'd wash my hair with the anti-dandruff shampoo. I don't know if I just couldn't penetrate the scalp. But I was like, no, let me shave my head.
If you have a really stubborn case, using dandruff shampoo, even prescription dandruff shampoo probably won't work. And there's other medications that you're going to need to use. And you said your doctor did prescribe you different treatment. So when you shaved your head, so tell me about the experience of shaving your head.
I mean, it was awful. It wasn't like awful, but it was really surprising.
Yeah.
Just because, I've always had like long hair, but my hair wasn't long when he shaved it. It was probably like, I don't know, maybe like 3 inches long.
Right. But now that shaved, you're able to kind of like apply those corticosteroids a lot easier. And it's possible that, listen, it's a tough move, but it's possible now that you're going to really be able to get to the root, so to speak, no pun intended, of the dermatitis and really treat it completely. And, who knows, maybe this will give you an opportunity to really heal yourself.
Right, which is what I thought about to begin with, because when he shaved my head, there were flakes that were coming off and like on the towel that he put around me, like all over the place. And he said, like, you have like a kind of like a dry scalp.
Right. Did he give you? Besides topicals, did he give you any oral medication?
No, he didn't. He gave me this topical treatment, and he recommended I use Head and Shoulders twice a week.
Right.
So I did that, and this was like a month ago when my hair was longer, and I didn't really see the Head and Shoulders do any, like, I didn't see it like working really.
Right.
So I bought Nizoral, and that seemed to work like okay for about like a month, and then I got like this dandruff again, and ever since I shaved my head, and now that I'm like using like I don't know, I use like the extra strength Head and Shoulders, and I use Nizoral as well, or Nizoral, I can't even pronounce it. I noticed it is getting a little bit better.
Well, what about changing your diet? I know this sounds kind of like wacky and off the wall, but did your doctor talk to you about diet at all?
He didn't, but the thing is with me, I've been really like depressed about like this whole hair loss thing for like the past 2 years, that I've lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Like when I first noticed it, like 2 years ago, I weighed like 130, and now I'm down to like 112, and I'm somewhat of a tall guy. I'm like 5'10".
Oh wow! So you're very thin.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
really skinny, and and I think this might have contributed to it as well, especially like stress.
Well,
But,
I listen. It all contributes to it, but I think that you really have to. First of all, you got to get some weight, put some weight back on. You got to try to eat, but I think you have to try to avoid foods that are going to cause like an inflammatory effect in your body. You want to try to stay as alkaline as possible. You want to possibly, kind of lessen your meat consumption. Eat less meat. Eat more fruits and vegetables. Try to drink a lot of water. Also, what you might want to do is you might want to add lemon juice to water. And again, this is not a cure-all, but there is definitely a correlation between this type of inflammatory disorder and diet. And a lot of people who really change their diet, really focus on a more plant-based diet, seem to recover and do much better with these topical treatments. So what's your average day like? What do you eat during the day?
Right. Well, you know what it is? I bought a book recently. It's an ebook, and it's just a weight gain book, and I've been reading it, and it makes a lot of sense. So like next week, I'm going to start going to the gym, and it shows you like what to eat, because I eat a lot of like garbage. Like I eat a lot of junk food, and which isn't good. But it also said in here that I should like consume like flaxseed oil, like 1 tablespoon, like a day.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to get the omega-3 fatty acids, so I'm going to try that.
This is what you want to avoid. Even though you're trying to gain weight, try to avoid the insulin spike in carbohydrates. Try to avoid refined sugars, breads, things of that nature, things that are also going to cause you, besides your insulin levels to fluctuate, to cause you to have possible inflammatory responses. I would eat less meat. You do need lean protein, for sure, but I would eat less red meat and really try to alkalize your body as much as possible. Stay away from all junk food. And, I mean, do you drink soda and stuff like that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, completely eradicate soda. Get it out of your diet. I'm telling you,
Okay,
if you
so
do
just
this,
water.
if you do this for 6 weeks, drink water, drink tea. Try to avoid coffee, even though coffee is not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but it is very acidic. Try to, go online and read about making your body alkaline, what foods that, you should incorporate into your diet. Fruits, vegetables, low glycemic index carbs, less meat, even though, when you're trying to gain weight, you want to incorporate a good amount of protein. For your specific condition, I think you need to start to really change your diet. And I'm telling you, I'm not a physician, but just judging from what you're telling me, you really don't take care of yourself. And just by changing your diet, you can really make a huge difference in this condition.
Right. I mean, I also like chicken was a big thing that they mentioned in this book. Like to eat chicken, not with every meal, but like I should be eating chicken like at least 3 times a week.
If you're looking at a diet just to gain weight. So, I mean, what I would say is try to find something where you're going to be eating clean. So go online. Even look. You can look at a paleo diet, even though they will promote meat, chicken, fish, things of that nature. But they're also going to be promoting really clean food. And also, good fruits and vegetables. So just learn how to eat whole foods as opposed to the crap that you're probably putting in your body, including soda pop or cereals and things that you're finding in the middle of the grocery store shelves. Just before I take another call, give me an idea of what you eat during the day.
Oh, okay. Well, when I wake up, depending on how early it is, I might not even eat breakfast.
Okay, that's not good.
Yeah, if I do eat breakfast, it's like a protein shake where it's like a nutriment. That's what it is. I'll drink like a nutriment in the morning. And then for lunch, I'll eat like pizza and water. I'll drink water, and then I'll get like garlic sticks. And then at night, I'll probably have like Chinese food.
Okay. You're in bad shape, dude. If you're suffering from this condition for so long and this is what you're eating, it's time to completely change your diet. Now, if you want to have Chinese food once a week, if you want to have a slice of pizza once a week, it's not going to be the end of the world. But initially, for the first couple of weeks, I would really try to be as strict as possible. Try to eat whole foods. Try to incorporate a lot of fruits and vegetables. If it's hard for you to eat fruits and vegetables, get yourself a good blender, like a Vitamix, and make yourself, fruit and vegetable smoothies. So, I like juicing, but I'm not the biggest fan of juicing because I think that it kind of gets rid of a lot of the fiber that you need. But a good way to, get your fruits and vegetables is just to make a big smoothie and drink a couple of those a day with like 5 or 6 different of your favorite fruits and vegetables. Try to add a lot of greens and stay away from the refined sugars. Pizza, it's basically, it's basically complete junk. I love pizza. It's my favorite food. But if you're having that every day, and if you're having Chinese food every night, you're not giving your body a chance to heal.
Yeah.
And,
it's interesting that you mentioned that too, because like I went to my doctor yesterday because I needed to go for a checkup, and he's never seen my head shaved ever, and this is like my family doctor. I've been going to him for years, and he was like, whoa, but he looked at my scalp. And he says there isn't like much dandruff, but he sees some scales still.
Right.
But it's only been like the 3rd day since I really started to treat, my scalp.
Yeah, I'm actually looking online now. Look up diet for seborrheic dermatitis, and there's a whole bunch of different websites that'll kind of give you an idea of what you might try to, eliminate from your diet and what you might want to start incorporating into your diet. And I'm telling you, if you change your diet and you really stick to it, I'm pretty convinced you're going to, at the very least, see a significant improvement.
And it's diet to treat seborrheic dermatitis?
Seborrheic dermatitis. Look up diets for seborrheic dermatitis, and you're going to come up with a bunch of stuff.
Oh, okay.
All right, man.
And that's definitely. And thank you again. Now, just one last thing before. Do you think what else besides medicated shampoos are there to treat this? I'm going to give the diet a try.
There's oral antifungals, which, frankly, that's a last resort. So, and because they can cause a lot of short-term and long-term adverse side effects. People with severe cases of this can benefit from it, and also different oral steroids. But right now, you're on from what you told me, it seems like you were prescribed a corticosteroid, which is a good, which is a good first line of attack, plus the shampoos you're on, and change what you're eating. And I'm telling you, you're going to see a difference.
Okay.
All right, man. Listen, I can't give you any guarantees, so don't hold me to it. But I'm pretty convinced that you're going to see a significant difference.
Yeah, I'm going to try that out. I had a feeling it had something to do with that, especially with the dramatic weight loss in the past 2 years that I've had.
Right.
I think that contributed to it as well. So
well, listen, call us back. Call me back in in a month and let me know how you're doing. All right.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay. Good luck. 888-659-3727. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Man, I've been trying to call since yesterday morning, and it's busy. You got a lot of callers calling in tonight.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You know how it happens at the beginning of the show. Get a couple of lines lit, they all drop, and I tell people I'm going to leave if you don't call back, and then all the phones light up.
Bam.
It works.
Well, that's just it. You give them something, and then you threaten to take it away, and people wake up and take notice.
I don't need to be here. I'm doing it for you guys. That's why I'm here.
That's why I'm here, because you're doing it for me, and so I don't want to let you down by not listening. Well,
I appreciate that. How are you, Joe Tillman? What's new? What's happening?
I'm good. Hey, I heard the last caller, and what he's going through. I went through the exact same thing roughly 4 years ago, and you and I have had many conversations about this, and I'm convinced that I didn't hear what he was talking about with his current diet, but I guarantee you he's got a really bad diet.
He has a prefab protein drink in a can in the morning. Sometimes if he has breakfast, he'll have like a couple of slices of pizza, water, and maybe some garlic sticks for lunch, and then he'll have Chinese food for dinner.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I mean, he's on
the problem.
He's on a slow boat to every possible disease you can possibly have, especially inflammatory type diseases.
And that's what I wanted to get to is, one thing that he should consider doing. And let me preface this by saying I'm not a doctor, just my educated opinions. But it's not just the eating right, but also start looking into natural anti-inflammatories like curcumin and turmeric.
Yeah, that's actually that's a good suggestion.
That's what I take. I take that daily.
Yeah.
And, I'm a big believer in the power of anti-inflammatories because when we have inflammation in our body, it just causes this cascade effect, this chain reaction of other things that that manifest in different ways. And one of them, I'm convinced, is what he was going through with the flaking, the scaling, and
there's no doubt about it. And I am, I'm not one to preach. I'm really not. And I am also a guy that admits that I love to eat. Some have said I may have a questionable relationship with alcohol, and I have definitely kind of gone in a dangerous direction as far as, just like I've been well over 200 pounds, 215 pounds at times. But I know when I really start to take care of myself and I get back on my diet and I cut back on the booze and I'm really I'm working out, but most of all, I'm eating clean. Everything changes. My skin is completely clear. I actually have less wrinkles, believe it or not, because for whatever reason, I definitely see a change in the texture of my skin. Everything looks better. Just the color of my skin becomes, you kind of get this reddish orange hue just from, adding these, fruits and vegetables. These, what are they called? Carotenoids?
Yeah. Carotenoids.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And, like sweet potatoes and green juices and stuff that I add to my diet every day. Now I'm in a pretty clean mode. And I definitely, I'm thinking straighter. I am just able to function and deal with day-to-day stuff so much better. And there's no doubt your skin is clearer. So anyone who is suffering any type of inflammatory issues, especially, these types of dermatitis or eczema, psoriasis, the first line of attack really should be, you need medication, especially if it's really inflamed. But changing your diet drastically will, in most cases, really, I've seen dramatic changes in people.
Yeah, I have too. And as a matter of fact, when I was doing the one-on-one consultations in Vancouver at Hassanawang, I would start to recommend people that they examine their diet and do research. And I actually had a couple people come back to me and say that their hair improved. And this goes into the another issue where people talk about how hair loss can be caused by things other than genetics. And, people used to come to me and say, does diet have anything to do with it? And I used to say no, because when you look at...
I guess you didn't read the Bald Truth.
I didn't read the Bald Truth, no. I was basing it on personal observation.
Right.
And it didn't have anything to do with myself. It had to do with a certain section of town in Vancouver that is known internationally for its homeless population.
Right.
And I was using logic. So through the homeless population, you would expect them not to have the most ideal diet in their lives. Yet anytime I'd be down in that section, don't ask why. No, I would seriously, I would notice that there would be people with a lot of hair.
Right.
It would seem like above average number of people would have stronger hair than what the average guy on the street would. And I always noticed that. And so my position used to be, well, you look at this certain section of town and, diet, they got great hair. It might be kind of dirty, but Yeah,
but a lot of these guys they're not producing normal levels of testosterone because they're drinking so much booze. So
that probably has something to do with it. But it was a naive observation at the time, and it wasn't until I learned about how it affects myself, until I got actually serious about my own diet and intake. And it wasn't because of any sort of health issues, or because I was turning 40 and thinking, oh God, I need to start getting my life in shape. It was because I was getting the same issue that the last caller had. I was getting these giant flakes. I mean, not even flakes, they're silver dollars.
Yeah.
Peeling off my scalp. And I was losing it, man. And when I say losing it, I'm not talking my hair. I'm talking my hair and my mind, because it was a huge deal for me. It was a career ender, as far as I was concerned. And I did a lot of research, and I was trying different shampoos and everything. And I finally settled on a specific tar-based shampoo that really helped me to knock it out. But more than anything, it was my diet. I started doing the clean eating thing, and I even started the paleo diet, which I've talked to you about many times.
Right.
And for the most part, I've stuck to it pretty well. I mean, I fall off the wagon every once in a while, but ever since I did that, my scalp got much better, and I've not really had any issues. Small flare-ups here and there.
It makes all the difference in the world when you tell somebody that, because, Western medicine doesn't really focus on nutrition, unfortunately. And when you go to a doctor, the first thing they do is they're like, okay, I've dealt with this before. These are the treatments we have, and let's give it a shot. We'll try you on this protocol. If this doesn't work, then we'll go to the next protocol. And you never hear about diet. And it's so unfortunate. Now, there are some doctors who will I actually have a great internist who is a huge believer in diet. And when I first went to him, I first met him, and it wasn't even for anything major. He was asking me about my diet, and he gave me dietary suggestions I already knew about. But it was I found it very refreshing that, and this was an old school guy. This guy's older than me, so he's been around the block, But they are really starting to notice, and it's just what you put into your body. It's the old saying: you are what you eat. And to me, some of these inflammatory conditions, these dermatological conditions, are some of the easiest conditions to treat nutritionally. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, look, once you make that commitment and you start seeing the benefits from it, it's really easy, fairly easy, I should say, to maintain that type of intake. I mean, right before the show, I just got back from a 45-minute round-trip drive to this specialty meat shop where I just bought $200 worth of organic free-range meat that I can trust, as well as the vegetables and all the things that go along with it.
Right.
And you make that commitment, and it becomes easier and easier. And by the time you see the benefits and get used to them, you can't see yourself going back to the way it was. I mean, every once in a while, I'm like you. Pizza's my favorite food.
Yeah. Look, you know me.
A good pepperoni pizza with maybe a little bit of anchovy on it, forget about it.
Oh, that's so funny that you like anchovy. I'm one of the few guys that likes anchovies on his pizza, so we're going to have to hang out and have that. But you know me. Like I'll sit down at dinner and I'll order like 2 main courses. I can eat and eat. I mean, I could really pack it away. But I also have to, I have to see I see the progression of my weight loss and, my weight gain and weight loss because I'm on camera all the time. And once I see myself getting past that tipping point, I'm like, oh my God, I'm a huge bloated. I'm like Alec Baldwin when he turned 55, when he got that really huge face. And then I know it's time to pull back the reins, And
Alec Baldwin effect.
Yeah, that Alec Baldwin effect. Thank you. I couldn't spit it out. But yeah, I mean, it's like it's easier than most people think. And once you get into the groove, it feels really good. Now, there's no doubt I have cravings. I go out. I try to save it for once a week, though, especially when I'm really on point. Just one really bad meal a week, one cheat meal. And I think that a guy like this who, he's 5'10", 112 pounds, so something's going on.
Huh?
Yeah, he said that he started at 135 pounds, which was his normal weight. And he said he lost a tremendous amount of weight. And part of it's because of depression of what's going on with his scalp. He just shaved his head. His dermatologist shaved his head so he can treat it. So he must be going through a lot. And he was
112 pounds. He's my height, and he is 50 some odd pounds lighter than me.
Yeah, he's thin.
That's scary. Okay.
Yeah.
It's time to do something. I mean,
well, you know
I'm at 165 right now, and that's a little bit light.
Yeah, tell him you were on a specific shampoo. What shampoo did you use?
Well, I was using something called Polytar AF. There's two kinds of Polytar. There's the regular Polytar, and it's spelled Polytar, and then there was Polytar AF, which was in a smaller bottle, cost twice as much. But the problem is that it's not available anymore. And I actually spoke to the manufacturers. It was one of the last independently or family-owned pharmaceutical companies in the world, and they finally got bought out. And they're telling me that the special sauce, secret ingredient, is hard to source, and they can't find it anymore. And so,
oh wow.
It's not that it's discontinued. It's just they can't find the source ingredient to make it anymore. Once they find it, then they'll make it. So eventually, my my pharmacist, he found me a new shampoo where the rep actually told him, this is the replacement for you for Polytar AF. He said it by name, and he felt it was strange that this guy was referencing Polytar AF specifically, because no one really knows about it.
Right.
It's just one of those things that a few people know about and they use it. But anyway, it's called Tardan, Tardan, and by the time I found this, my scalp situation is already in good shape, and I'm maintaining with Nizoral 2% ketoconazole. But I tried this, and it does seem to be just like the older shampoo I was using, Polytar AF.
Well, so, listen, I'm glad that you called in, because it's great that this caller has gets to listen to someone who had the exact same issue, who solved it.
Yeah.
And diet is really important. Sometimes I don't avoid talking about diet, but sometimes it kind of sounds like hocus pocus to people. Everyone wants you to just take a pill or to rub on a cream or a salve and cure their issue. Changing your diet and really making that commitment for a lot of people is very difficult. Depending on their job, and I think this guy lives in New York, so you live in New York, man. It's really easy just to go down the street and get a slice. Order some Chinese food. It's not that easy to plan your meals and to make a commitment to that. But I think this guy's life would change, and I'm glad that you called in to talk about your experience.
If he's listening, the one thing he needs to do is he needs to go online and do a search for organic meat producers, organic meat shops, free-range meat shops, shops that specialize in organic, free-range, antibiotic-free, hormone-free meats like chicken, beef, turkey, pork, whatever. And if you go to your local grocery store, they'll probably have a section that offers this, but it'll be twice as expensive as the normal stuff.
Right.
You need to find a shop that specializes in it so that they got the volume that's high enough to offset, that type of pricing issue. So the place I found, it's a 45-minute round trip, but the prices are just the same as my local Safeway.
Yeah, and actually, there are places online you can order frozen meat, which which are pretty good. We've done it, and we've gotten some really great steaks. And if you know the right cuts, you can get a pretty reasonable price. And it depends on how you cook it. If you have a slow cooker, you can order a tougher cut of meat. You're still getting the same protein, and you just have to cook it longer. But I think that's great advice, man. Listen, I'm going to. Do you want to stick around? We'll take a couple of calls.
Sure. Yep.
All right. Let me make sure. Oh, this phone system is always so complicated for me. All right. Let's see if I can make this work. Okay. There you go. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from? All right. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Hello.
Feels like he's in the car.
Yeah. All right, man. I'll give you another second. Can you hear me? Sounds like he's butt dialing me.
I was just going to say.
Yeah. Anyway, man, I'm actually thinking about calling it quits early tonight. But, I mean, is there anything that you wanted to talk about besides this guy's call?
Well, I mean, just something that's been on my mind a little bit lately are, when it comes to the surgical side of things, the expectations that people have.
Maybe you missed the opening because I talked about that, which is very wild.
I did miss the opening.
Holy cow! No, basically that I got an email today, and there's also a couple of threads on Bald Truth Talk. But I got an email today from a guy who had a reasonable result, but I believe was probably provided with, quasi unrealistic expectations, or maybe the explanation wasn't really. He wasn't really listening to the doctor during the consultation, which is a possibility, but he was basing his expectations on what he sees online and not necessarily from this particular doctor. Just, what happens is people see the best of the best online and they automatically think unless something goes wrong, they're going to get those results. And that is not the case.
Yeah, that's you're 100% correct. And, it's tough for me because I've been on the side of the coin where, I've been posting those results for clinics. And of course they want, clinics want the best results shown to give the wow impression, to say, to get in the mind of the consumer, the viewer, the reader, hey, this place is, they do home runs.
That's right.
But the fact of the matter is they don't always do home runs. And while better clinics will have more home runs than lesser clinics, no one out there.
Hello. Oh man, I know you're about to make a really good point, but it looks like your phone dropped. So I'm going to drop you, and let's take another call. Joe Tillman, call back. Hey man, you're on the air. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Spencer.
Hello.
Tonight, I'm afraid to inform you and your millions of listeners that I'm in a very bad mood.
Really?
So viciously attacked, and I must castigate you for not having come in and visit me in a certain restaurant that will remain nameless here for obvious reasons.
So is it
play my intro?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll play your intro.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
My name is excuse me. My name is
Would you like to may reiterate it?
my name is
Have you heard it? Excuse me.
my name is
Joe from Staten Island.
So not Joe from Staten Island. What can I do for you? Who is this?
How you doing, man? This is Brian from LA.
Brian, what's happening, man? How are you? That was awesome.
My Joe impression.
That was incredible.
Was it? I don't know.
It really was. It was spot on. I mean, obviously, I knew it wasn't Joe because he's got a tough voice, but you're very close, man.
I put a finger in my mouth. Kind of.
That's all you need to do. A little cotton in your mouth.
I love you, Joe. Anyways, I'm doing good. How you been, man?
I can't complain, man. Long time no speak or see.
Yeah, I know. I left that.
What?
That POS place.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you working someplace good? You should let me know where it is.
Yeah, definitely. I'll shoot you a Facebook and I'll let you know. It's in Beverly Hills.
Oh, good.
I think. Wait, aren't you? I can't remember which way you're out. Were you closer to the other place?
I'm at the other place. I'm in Calabasas.
Okay. All right. Well, if you're ever in the neighborhood, it's a little bit.
I'm in the neighborhood all the time, man.
Sounds good. So yeah, I've been listening to your show, but I always find myself working on Tuesdays. Can't really call in. I got off this Tuesday, so I thought I'd call and say hi, let you know how it's going on.
Well, I'm glad you called, man. That was a great impression. So, what made you? If you can talk about it, what made you leave? You were there for so long.
Well, okay. Well, we already knew they were taken over by another company.
Yes.
And now everybody's going crazy. They're not talking about hair loss. Sons of bitches. Anyways, they're taken over by another company, and I have my certain beliefs about that. But the main thing is the management. With that lady that works there is the incarnation of Satan. So
that's really interesting, because when I go there, I get a much. It's not the best vibe. It's not the best vibe in the world. You know, it's a completely different vibe than it was even over the initial transition when they had the other guys there, and all they did was basically change the suits and the music, and it was the same.
Yeah. She's a piece of crap. You know, for all the hair loss sufferers out there, she might have been the one that brought hair loss to the world. That's how ancient of an evil this woman is.
That bad.
But yeah, I can tell you more stories about it. But I'm at a new place.
Let me tell you, your Joe from Staten Island is going to be one for the records. I'm going to make sure, Suncast, if you are in the chat, make sure that you isolate that so we can use it for the show. It was great, man. It really was. So what's happened with your hair?
You know what? I had to fire up the motorcycle, and I had to go to Beverly Hills, because that hour drive from where I'm at was not cutting it in my car.
Right.
Killing myself. And so basically the traffic was making me pull my hair out, and then now the helmet's making me pull my hair out, and I'm not really liking it. But I don't know. I don't know if it's my helmet or if I'm just being a little overly critical because it mats the hair down and then I have to redo it again.
I think that's what it is. I don't think the helmet is actually pulling your hair out. It's unlikely. And I'm pretty sure the fact that, your hair is smashed down with this helmet, you get to work and you got to try to redo it. I mean, that's a pain in the ass.
Well, just to clarify, I got a really small penis, so I have a really cool motorcycle.
That works.
And a really cool motorcycle helmet.
Right.
And to have a cool motorcycle helmet, it's got to look like a jet fighter, and it's got to be really small.
Yeah.
And it's got to be like tied on my scalp, and so that's all because I have a small penis, and that's really where it hurts.
Isn't everything we do because of that in life?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's all about compensating.
I only need just a little bit more, just like an inch more. But
right.
I mean, I don't have it.
Dude,
so I gotta buy a motorcycle.
An inch is a lot in that department, dude.
Yeah, but it's funny. The other day I came home and my roommate, I don't know if I didn't how all the sufferers probably know if you have some semblance of a hair and you kind of just fluff it a little bit so it looks a little fuller.
Yes.
And maybe one day you walk out and you forget to fluff it in a certain spot and there's just a little thing that's showing through. My roommate comes in and he's like, oh, and we have this thing, it's called, it's like urban talk. It's improper talk.
Right.
So let's go up the street, man, like that. Well, when we say you're losing your hair, we say that shit's done, man. Well, and we'll look at our hair and goes, "You're Dundee. Look at your Dundee right there." And he did that to me, and I'm like, "Oh my god!"
Now is his shit done?
And is his?
Yeah.
No, he's. The funny thing is, we talked about it, and we have very similar kind of foreheads, the kind of bulbous foreheads. And but not big, but just to kind of round and stick out, and the hair is a little bit back. And I told him a long time ago, because I've been living for 3 years, and I told him, I go, I've had this forehead like this since I was a kid, and I pulled out a picture, and I showed him, I go, but I have recessed a little bit. And so I remember that 3 years ago, I told him that. And then when he told me that the other day that I was Dundee, I looked at him, and he was all, since I was 16, and he was using the same dialogue that I gave him a few years prior.
So he's he's Dundee too, man.
There's a little bit of Dundee going on.
Yeah, dude, it happens to all of it happens to almost all of us. Those who kind of make it past a certain point and have not had any hair loss at all, it's pretty rare. I mean, there's not one of my peers, not one of kids that I grew up with. For a while I thought there was a couple of real bulletproof guys, but now they're catching up.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to do the entertainment thing, so it kind of, I was telling him, maybe I should change my look. Maybe I'll just skin it, and get buffed out and be like a Jason Statham.
Yeah, why not?
He says it works for people like him that are established like Bruce Willis, but you got to get in there with hair, which is kind of crazy.
I don't know if that's true, though. I don't know if that's true. I think now that that they've kind of broken that mold, that maybe you can get in there shave. They kind of like led the way. So it's already, it's already something that's acceptable.
Right. But what it is it's not so much that you can't do it. It's that it's the agents. The agents want to look at you like you're a piece of crap that they got to buff. And if there's just any chink in your armor, they're going to sit there and close the door before you get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
Now, you had a couple $100,000 invested in your own short film. You put it out there, and it was a kick-ass film. People would look at it and like, they wouldn't care. You look cool. You make a cool movie. There's Bruce Willis. There's Jason Statham. There's The Rock. There's Vin Diesel doesn't have any hair, and he doesn't. He literally is balding. Vin Diesel's not just that he doesn't shave it.
Right. And then there's Brian from L.A.
Hopefully someday, maybe never.
Yeah, it'll happen, man. It'll happen if you keep, stick to your guns.
I was listening to the other show with when Joe brought up Rob Lowe, and there's some kind of thing he wanted to boycott DirecTV.
yeah.
Which I think I understand what he's saying, but he's misguided. It's not DirecTV. There's a movie or program that was the joke was about. I believe it wasn't it was a commercial for program, and it was pretty. Let's laugh at the bald guy. But
so it wasn't a commercial for DirecTV. I thought it was a commercial for DirecTV.
I don't think so. I remember he was being interviewed, and he was being interviewed as himself, Rob Lowe. And
right.
It was about some either movie or TV show coming on. There was the guy interviewing was another actor, and it looked like some sort of comedy or something. I got to look it up, but. The point is that to kind of soothe his anger about that, it was a bald joke, but it was, the guy, when Rob Lowe pulled off his hair, he looked like Jason, like he was keeping strands of his hair left, and there was spottiness. It was like basically saying, hey, look what you've done to yourself by trying to cover up what you have.
Right.
It was the worst case of a bald thing, someone trying to, and nobody would ever say, I'm proud.
Joe just needs to bring some content to the show. He's just trying. He's grasping at straws. I don't know how bummed out he really was.
DirecTV, I don't even have DirecTV, and I saw it.
Yeah.
So I thought it's everywhere. That's why I think the program's on
Hulu. It probably is. I got to check it out myself. But listen, I want you to Facebook me and let me know where you're working. I
definitely will.
I'll definitely check it out. Dude, listen, thanks for the call. Always a pleasure. Glad you had time to watch the show tonight and call in. And then we will be using that as a clip for the show.
I'll look forward to hearing it.
All right, man. You take care.
All right, man.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air.
It's me again.
Hey, me. You're in the middle of a great point. And your phone crapped out, but I'm glad that it did because we were able to get Brian from LA on, who did an incredible Joe from Staten Island.
I was on hold. I didn't hear that part, but from your reaction, it sounds like it was just spot on.
It was incredible. It was incredible.
And Brian sounds good. It sounds like he's doing well too. It's nice to hear from him.
Well, he's got his life together. He's a cool guy, and he's actually, if you know the story in brief, for those who don't know the story, he's a guy that's been a fan of the show for a long time. Who actually was a server in a place that I really liked to, I used to frequent, and he didn't even bug me. He didn't even say, "Hey, Spence, I listen to the show or I watch you on the internet or whatever it is." He just did his thing. And you know what? I am so glad that me and Common Law are good people because it was a screwed up situation that night. We handled it with complete, listen, it's life. It's not cancer, whatever happened. It took a while for us to be waited on. And we still gave the guy a good tip. And you know what? If I didn't do that, he could have been bashing me all over the internet.
Of course.
But instead...
Of course.
We did the right thing, and I'm glad that we did. No, he's a really nice guy. But then he called the show and he said, "I was that guy who waited on you," and it was wild. And then what I would do is, once I got to know him a little bit, I would ask for him at the restaurant, and he always treated us really well. Great guy.
Nice.
That's my little story.
Having come from the service industry myself of several years, I can appreciate that. So well done.
So make your point, and then we're going to call it a night. What were you going to say? Do you remember?
Well, I was talking about expectations, right? Where you mentioned the email that you got, and that was the beginning of your show, and it just happened to be on my mind today as well. Guys, when you're looking at, these results on the internet, they look fantastic. It depends on how the photos were taken. Okay, there are certain clinics out there. Some I had great influence on where they don't use a flash, which greatly alters the image and the chances of that looking the same in reality.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think that if the average guy out there is looking online and he's seeing these results that are just blowing him away, I think that a good way to keep it in perspective is take what you're seeing on whatever result that you really like, apply it to yourself, and divide it by 2. And that's probably the way that you'll wind up.
Right.
50% of what you like on the guy online. And then if it winds up being better than that, then you'll be even happier. That's
actually an interesting equation. And I think that's a reasonable process, honestly. And this is the thing. If you were to promote that, like a clinic would not promote that fact, because there'd be a lot of guys who would not pull the trigger because they base their decisions on before and afters. They base their decisions on videos. They base their decisions on the anonymous posts of the posts of anonymous people on the internet. And they most likely will then call the clinic, and maybe they'll have an in-person consultation. But I would say the vast majority of guys may not even see the doctor until the day of surgery. That's just the way the industry works.
Just the way it works.
And I think that, I think it's bad for the patient. It's also bad for the clinic itself, because every time that situation, that scenario occurs, the clinic is taking a big chance. You never know who you're dealing with.
The thing about the internet is the more exposure you put on yourself as a clinic. Hey, look at me! Look at all these results I'm putting out day in, day out. The more at risk that clinic is putting themselves for critique and for negative press, and it's a double-edged sword. I mean, you can put up the greatest result in the world, and you can still have people critique it, but then you have that one guy that has a procedure that was fixated on that same result, and then when he doesn't turn out the same way, batten down the hatches. The storm is coming.
Well, but this is the thing. I think that everyone who is unhappy certainly has the right to voice their opinion. I think.
Oh yeah.
But I think that, and this is the way that I wish all forums were run. But I think that there has to be some sort of control. I mean, the casual observer, the guy who's on the message forum, really, in my view, should not be allowed to comment. It's not their place to comment on someone's complaint. That really should be for the physician and the patient, or, and in some cases, the representative. And if they need to get it out there online, and I think it's fair if someone really feels scorned, someone really feels like they were misled, to be able to make a reasonable complaint, just tell the truth, prove that you're a real patient, and fine, get that out there. But what I see, some of the stuff that goes on, you don't even know if these guys are real patients. You don't know where the information's coming from, and you don't know. And I will tell you that on our forum, we have caught physicians, and this is the truth, bash their colleagues anonymously online, make up stories about their colleagues. There's one guy in particular that was really, really egregious about the whole situation. And don't think that doesn't happen every day. So I really think there needs to be some semblance of control. And frankly, on most of the forums, I don't see that. And I think it's unfair to the patient. I think it's unfair to prospective patients. What happens if your doctor, if you had surgery with a physician on a Tuesday, and then the next day you go on the forum and you read some crazy story about that same doctor? You don't know if it's true or not. And what happens if it's not true? What happens if that was stories written by their competitor or by their angry ex-wife? So I really think there certainly should be some guidelines in the forums, and in my view, there isn't. We tried to really, make it a safer place for consumers. We really do.
Well, what posters don't, what many posters may not take into account is the fact that, look, it takes balls. I won't dispute this. It takes balls to go online and complain about your doctor. Okay.
Honestly, I don't mean to cut you off. It takes balls if you're willing to expose yourself and let people know that you're a real person.
Exactly. And you can do it without giving up your identity. And,
that's right.
You just got to do it smart.
Well, but I do think you will have to give your identity up to some degree, but hopefully the moderators of that forum are not going to divulge your identity.
But I'm talking publicly, like out in the wild public, anyone knows who this guy is.
Yeah, I don't think that's reasonable to expect. But yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But what these guys aren't taking into account is that they're not just having a discussion back and forth with the clinic publicly. They're having a discussion with every single person that's reading that. So your analogy of patient X that just had his procedure, he's already nervous as hell.
Right.
He's already gone in with all kinds of doubts and fears and apprehensions. And it's the next day, and he's looking at himself in the mirror, and he's like, Jesus, what the hell did I just go through?
That's right.
What did I just do to myself? And he goes online, and he sees some guy complaining. Maybe it's a real guy, maybe it's not. But some guy complaining, and that patient is now being put in a position for failure. Because when you plant that seed of doubt in such a way, it can grow. And I'm convinced that if you have a seed of doubt that's planted early on in the process, that can actually have some sort of influence on the final result.
Well, I agree 100%, and that's why I think it's so important that there are measures put in place on these forums, and they are not. They are not, and I do not think that is in the best interest of the patient. If you have a forum that is claiming to be in the best interest of consumers, of patients, you cannot allow this stuff to happen. If it's a valid complaint, if it's a real person and they're able to prove that, then absolutely, that goes online, that's posted, that is there for, in perpetuity. But you cannot let it become a pylon. You let the representatives and the physicians answer, respond, and, frankly, why a lot of these guys do is they want some sort of a resolution. They want to be helped. Yeah. They're not just out there to try to get blood. They want to be helped, and they feel they're not getting.
They're not trying to cause any sort of damage. They're not trying to be malicious.
Right.
They're actually trying to get some sort of
They want a resolution.
They're trying to get resolution. Yeah. But sometimes they just don't go about it the right way, and I think that it'd be nice if there was some way that would be a reliable filter, as it were. But it'd be difficult to put that in place. Not to mention the fact that it's not just the guys that are maybe complaining online; it's the guys that are behind the scenes that may not be complaining publicly, but they might. Here's a classic example. All right, someone that is maybe a repair case, maybe not a repair case, and they see my result. Like I've been through the mill. The 2 bad surgeries, but I've had 4 repair surgeries over the course of 12 years.
Right.
And my current status as far as a hair transplant patient is after a ton of work.
Right. After multiple surgeries and thousands of grafts.
Yeah. More hair has been transplanted on my head than most anyone else on the planet.
Right.
And for someone to have one surgery, a small surgery at that, and to fixate on my result and to compare themselves at 9 months, 12 months, whatever, one surgery to my result after 4 surgeries is absolutely ridiculous. And it's people like this that have an unrealistic fixation on a final result that has nothing in common with their own, that can cause issues for that clinic. It can cause issues for other people, maybe, looking into that clinic, because it paints a very false picture.
Absolutely. You know,
So the final
I
result.
think, you know, I know that you provide like a questionnaire for people, or you're going to, or you do, you know, for people to ask, you know, the right questions during a consultation. I honestly believe that physicians need a specific type of questionnaire to ask patients and to let them know, like, you know, if your doctor doesn't ask this question, then you need to ask this yourself. You know, the doctor needs to know right off the bat, do you realize that you have to have realistic expectations? You have to understand that what you see online may not be the results that you get. These are our average cases. If physicians were willing to do that, it would cause, not only would it cause them so much less trouble, I mean, to deal with all this, you know, the stuff that they have to deal with, but the patients themselves, would be so beneficial for patients to be able to go in there with their eyes wide open, with the possibility of getting a mediocre result, which, to them it may be mediocre, but it's a reasonable result based on their hair characteristics, based on the number of grafts that can be moved in their particular case, based on their biological limitations.
I think it would be. I think it would actually be beneficial for clinics to, instead of posting all the home runs. Look, it's like this, and this is one of the things that I want to change in the industry if I can. It'll be difficult. I probably won't be able to do it, but I'm going to give it my best shot.
Now that's a negative. That's a negative attitude that I don't like to hear.
Well, I'm about to turn it around. Okay.
Okay.
I am working on a project, one of a few, where I'm going to put out an actual call to all clinics publicly and try to force, try to put pressure on them. If you have a Norwood 6 patient that had 3,000 grafts, show the back.
Right.
Show the sides. Show the top. Because far too many times you'll see guys with these advanced cases of hair loss on the Norwood scale, and they get a relatively average size session, and you'll see the back, you'll see the crown, you'll see the top in the before pictures, but you don't see them in the after pictures.
Right.
There's something wrong with that. I don't like that, because that's part of the problem. That's telling these Norwood 6 guys that a 3,000, even a 4,000 graft session is going to give them complete coverage only because they didn't see what coverage wasn't achieved.
Right.
Right? It's by omission of those photos. The average guy isn't going to say, well, I didn't see the back. What's going on in the back?
Yeah, I mean,
see the front,
that back shot.
Which is the most important, but it's a psychological turnaround that makes guys forget. It makes them forget
agree, yeah.
that the back wasn't done, and when they go in, they get the surgery. Well, why didn't you hit the back? Well, we couldn't get enough grafts. And they walk out disappointed. I've seen it happen.
I know. And I think, when I hear from doctors who are dealing with complaints, and I ask them very pointed, very specific line of questioning, and I would say that most of the guys will kind of fail that basic line of questioning, basically fail that test. I asked them if they basically presented these potential facts, these things that can potentially happen during the procedure or after procedure to the patient. And sometimes they hem and haw, and sometimes they'll say no. And I'm like, that's the problem. All you had to do was provide everything they needed. And you're right. If everyone provided aerial views, so to speak, top shots and back shots of these home run cases, of these Norwood 6s and 7s that seem to have these outrageous results, there'd be a lot less problems for consumers and a lot less problems for the clinics themselves. So I think that's a great project.
Well, the clinics that are doing this, I understand their approach, and they don't want to be the only ones doing this, because they feel like if they're the only ones being upfront about it, then
they're going to be at a disadvantage.
They're going to be at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Exactly. And all it takes is for a few clinics to do this, to say, you know what, we are all for transparency. We want people to be as informed as possible. So we are going to show this. No flash, all angles. It doesn't matter if it's a hairline. We're going to show the crown. right?
Yeah, it's a very skewed way of thinking, and I think that a lot of it's done out of fear, and this is just the way it's always been done. So people are afraid to make that change because you're right. It's kind of like, and this happens a lot in this industry. There's a lot of guys that want to do certain things, but they're afraid to go out there and do it themselves because they feel that they will be left at a disadvantage, and everyone else is just going to be letting them kind of like hang out there, on the limb by themselves. And not just when it comes to this. And I think you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of people in the industry who are unhappy with a lot of things that go down in this field, but they're afraid to say anything. They're afraid to do anything because they don't want to be left alone. But collectively, the entire industry can change, and it can change for the better. And there's nothing wrong. You're not going to lose patients by giving them realistic expectations. As a matter of fact, you're going to have a hell of a lot less complaints online globally if that were the case.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like if clinics are more upfront and transparent from the get-go with their presentations, then that can virtually eliminate these issues.
Absolutely. And we're talking about real transparency, not the transparency that's being promoted out there in the industry, but real transparency. Right. Just these are the facts. These are the possibilities. This is what we might be able to do for you. And these are this is the best case scenario. This is the average case scenario. And this is what a hair transplant looks like from all angles. That's it. Yeah. It's very simple. I can guarantee you, in my view, that cases will go up. More people will end up having surgical hair restoration because they're going to be made aware of the entire scope, like I always say, and all the possible pitfalls. And they're also going to have confidence in going in there and saying, you know what, okay, this is what can be done. I'm okay with that.
And I agree 100% with that. And I think that it'll also eliminate some of the misconceptions about natural hair loss, because one of the things that I would hear all the time from patients coming in, when I would show them a Norwood 6 or Norwood 5 where only the front was done and the back wasn't touched, they'd say, well, that doesn't look natural. And I would always just kind of be flabbergasted by that, because they're saying that it doesn't look natural because it's not a full head of hair.
Right.
Which is not what natural is.
Right. Well, my dad let him rest in peace. Is a prime example of that. If you were to know him, most of his older life, I mean, he was a guy with a really good hairline and a pretty significant loss on the mid-anterior scalp and the crown. And it could have looked like a really great hair transplant, but that was his natural pattern.
And there are a lot of guys out there that have this pattern, but it's funny. It's just one of those patterns that's not on the Norwood-Hamilton hair loss scale.
Yeah.
Where you have a complete,
which is an incredibly flawed scale, by the way.
It is incredibly flawed, of course. But people see this and they say, well, that doesn't look natural. And that just blows me away.
Yeah.
Because it tells me that they're not very observant to begin with. And number two, they're not going to be happy with what they're going to get in one surgery. That's for sure. And that's the kind of person I would say, well, you're not a candidate for surgery.
Look, the truth is the vast majority of guys who even consider surgery, who go in for a consultation, really are not emotionally prepared for the reality of this form of cosmetic surgery. They just aren't.
Absolutely.
You think that they are. You think that they're educated. You think they've done their due diligence. Most guys have not. And then there are those who spend all their time on the forum, and they are just, and I want to say they're overeducated, but they're kind of filled with what I believe to be is a lot of misinformation, and they think they understand the true nuances of surgical hair restoration when in fact they read most of this information and collected this data from, guys who aren't even in the field.
I consider guys like that to be the same ones that read up, all the information online and think that they can fly an F-18 Hornet.
Exactly. That's actually very well put, and it's just so true. There are so many guys that will battle about, the certain nuances of surgical hair restoration and, grafts per square centimeter versus this and that. And maybe they've had a procedure, maybe they haven't. But the bottom line is that they've only read this shit. They've never performed surgery in their life, and that's why I don't give that kind of advice. I never have. As much as I know about this industry, as many surgeries as I've seen performed, as much as I know, I would not go into that type of detail with people.
Yeah. Right now it's to the point where I don't want to get into that, but I'm seeing some discussions going on where there are these battles erupting, and both sides are so wrong. It's ridiculous that I have to jump in, and I'm actually putting together a video to address an issue that's on one of the forums right now, just to do my best to put the issue to bed with the right answer and do some education at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea, and I think that's what's needed out there. What I think is needed out there is I really believe, and again, I own a forum, and we have an extremely well-trafficked, popular forum. I see a lot of problems with the forum. We try to address those problems, and we've made tremendous changes, and the forum has really gotten to a place where I believe it's a much safer place for consumers. However, it is not perfect. I just wish that everyone in the forum world, whether it's in the hair loss forum world or other cosmetic surgery forums, I just wish they would kind of like see the big picture instead of just worrying about the traffic. Because, people are really depending on this information, sadly, in many cases, to make their decisions, and a decision that's going to affect the rest of their lives. Yeah. And to allow some of the bullshit that goes on in these forums, I mean, it really takes away from it kind of takes the medicine out of all of this. And it's a medical procedure. It's a true cosmetic surgery procedure. It's real surgery.
Well, it is real surgery, but let's not kid ourselves. Drama sells. Soap operas sell, right? And
yeah, that's unfortunate.
When you have some of these, yeah, it is unfortunate, but I can't help but think that maybe that's why some of these things are allowed to go on in some of the forums, because it does bring people back. It does maybe generate interest. It's not the kind of interest I'd want for my forum if I had one. Right. I'm a firm believer that if you have good, solid information, then the people will come.
They do,
right? And obviously they do with Bald Truth forums. So,
right.
It is what it is. But that's my rant for the day. It
was a good rant, and I appreciate the call, and I appreciate everyone else who called in. We went 10 minutes past the hour, and I'm going to call it a night. But Joe, while you're on the air, I know that you are revamping your website. Why don't you give out your URL so people can visit it?
I appreciate that. Well, it's hairtransplantmentor.com. That's mentor.com. And yeah, it's definitely being rebuilt. What you're seeing right now is just temporary in place so I can put up articles and stuff, maintain my domain. But I've got a really nice site being built up. It's going to have some nice tools that can be downloaded, and I think it's going to have some unique offerings that have not been seen in the industry before. So I'm kind of excited about it.
Well, I think you have a unique perspective, being from where you came from and being a victim of the industry, and then being repaired by the industry, and then getting involved in the day-to-day aspects of the industry, working for a clinic for so many years. That's a unique perspective, and frankly, that's a perspective that I don't have, and that's why I kind of appreciate you kind of being a part of things and getting more involved with the Bald Truth, and offering this information to our users through our resources, because it's very important. So I
appreciate that, and I think it's a good. I like what you've got going on, because I think it's a good fit, and I think it's. When you have solid information that's reliable and unique, like you said, I have a unique perspective on it, a unique take. I think that you do as well.
Well, I know every aspect of this industry it's a frightening place. It is a frightening place, and I just tell people the truth, man. Surgery is a last resort, and frankly, if you're going to have it, this is what you need to do, and it still may be effed up. It still may not work out for you.
Yeah.
And that's the truth.
Yeah. Well, what people need to understand is that it's not a guarantee. I hate the word guarantee when it comes to hair transplants. It's not a fairy tale. and it might turn into a nightmare. And they just got to understand that.
Well, that's well said, man. On that note, I'm going to go. Joe Tillman, thank you so much for calling. We'll talk to you soon.
Pleasure. Have
All
a
right,
good night.
man. Take it easy. The website's thebaldtruth.com, of course, if you want to see archives of this broadcast or download, the audio version. Of course, you could subscribe to The Bald Truth through iTunes. And you can also subscribe to other GFQ broadcasts through iTunes as well. You can check out GFQ's website at gfqnetwork.com. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And the guys from Queens Network. And if you want to get information on surgical hair restoration, you're considering surgery, and you want to start doing your due diligence, check out the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. And, of course, you could always check out AmericanHairLoss.org, which is the website for the American Hair Loss Association. Until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.